Welcome back to One of the Trenches podcast. I'm Johnny Jones. He's Patches Kaplan, here to break down week 0. How we feeling, Patch?
Week 0 is my favorite week in college football just because we're getting college football back, Johnny.
Yep.
Not a great slew of games this week, but nonetheless, we have college football this Saturday. I walked outside this morning and I said to myself, I almost need a sweatshirt because it was getting that chilly.
Oh, it feels great. Brisk
feels
football
so
weather's
nice.
upon us. I don't know. I'm going to push back against the crapping all over week 0 because we do have the Aer Lingus Classic.
Who was it last year? Is Georgia Tech FSU?
Yeah, and Georgia Tech beat them, and that was after FSU went undefeated. Well, I guess they lost the ACC championship. But
Doesn't count.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. That was a lot of hype, and that Georgia Tech team was good all season. I think they're gonna be good this year, but I don't know. We usually never get a 2 ranked teams first week. We do this year: Iowa State, Kansas State. Do you want to hop into it?
I like it. I think that week 0 games and Thursday and Friday night week 1 games are some of the best things because everyone in their mothers is watching that game. And I just think it's so exciting, especially this year, with the Big 12, the way that it is. I think 9 out of the 13 teams are all between plus 400 and plus 600 to win the Big 12. You're talking
Big 12's open.
Single game matters.
Yeah. Every game matters. Yeah, I know. And to get one of them in week 0 is going to be pretty crazy, especially because both these teams, I think, could win the Big 12.
Yeah, the quarterback matchup is remarkable. And I think the Big 12 is being, just like they are every year, is being undersold a little bit. And I wonder a little bit if Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 has a lot to do with that.
That branding, I think. I think
that's what it is, because it is frustrating because there are some really good teams in the Big 12, and I think that a lot of them could be really talented, as the years could progress and that conference gets better and better. 4 or 5 different champions in the last 5 years, if my memory serves me. We had Arizona State last year,
right.
Kansas State 2 years ago, Oklahoma 3 years ago, Texas 4 years ago.
Maybe that sounds about right. Something like that. But I really do think it's branding. I think big brands kind of validate conferences, if that makes sense. SEC got Alabama, LSU, all of them. Even the ACC got Clemson, obviously, Big Ten, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. And I think the Big 12 losing the top 2 brands kind of invalidates them to a lot of just kind of casual fans. But you're right. They got a lot of teams that can go for the title. I think before the Jake Retzlaff news at BYU, everyone thought BYU was going to be run away with the conference, but him having to go to Tulane really opens everything up.
No, it really does. There's a lot of really good teams. And if you told me that Utah, if you told me that Texas Tech, Arizona State, Kansas State, or Iowa State, if any of them won the Big 12, I would not be surprised at a single one of them. It's not like last year. I think Arizona State was 19-1 to win the conference, which is a crazy idea. But this year, like I said, I think even Colorado, if Colorado won it, they bring in some really good talent on the offensive line. They have some good wide receivers, a good quarterback who I'm drawing a blank on. He's a transfer. Even Houston, Cincinnati, both teams that can make a splash. Houston gets a familiar name in Connor Wegman from A&M, but it's just a very interesting conference nonetheless. I think it's probably one of the most interesting conferences because the leader in the September will not be the leader in October, which will not be the leader in November.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely the most interesting. It's definitely the most wide open out of the Power 4 that we're going to talk about today. But do you want to start there, or do you want to start with the games?
Yeah, so this week we have, and we'll do our picks a little bit later, but we'll start with Iowa State versus Kansas State. Excuse me. We have Idaho State at UNLV. The Dan Mullen era starts this Saturday. Yep. Fresno State at Kansas. Lance Leopold and I always get the 2 mixed up. Jalon Daniels, correct?
Yep. You're right. You got it.
The key to he stays healthy. That'll be a fun team to watch, just like last year, where they couldn't get anything going just because he couldn't stay healthy. Sam Houston at Western Kentucky, 2 smaller schools, not overly familiar with either. Stanford at Hawaii. Hawaii's a 2.5-point favorite on that one. But, Iowa State, Kansas State, 2 front runners, probably the 2 most experienced quarterbacks in the Big 12. Yep. Sam Levitt's high up there. But you're talking Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson entering his 3rd year, had roughly 30 touchdowns, 7 on the ground last year. Big body frame. He's a Heisman caliber guy. He's in the running for the Heisman. I think he's 20-1, maybe 18-1.
Yeah. No, I really like Avery Johnson. I really like Kansas State this game. I do think Iowa State's a good team. I do think Matt Campbell has had success in the past. And you said it, Rocco Beck's a great quarterback. I think they just kind of lost a little too much in that wide receiver core. They had two guys over 1,000 yards last year, as I said last week on the pod. I think that's 2,000 yards of production now you're missing. And I think it's going to take a couple weeks for Rocco Beck to get used to his new guys. I do think Avery Johnson is absolutely an outstanding quarterback. I think after Will Howard at Kansas State showed like very consistent play, his years at Kansas State, people just kind of thought that the Chris Kleiman system would just kind of be off to the races with Avery Johnson, and he did have some duds last year, but I think in this era of just the transfer portal and getting these 1-year guys at schools, I think people just expect quarterbacks to hop into a system and excel right away. And that's just not the case. You need to develop. And I think that Avery Johnson stumbled a little bit last year, but he also had some awesome games, like games where throwing for over 250, running for 80 yards. That's a lot of production. So I think going into his third year, as you said, like I think he's going to take the next step and be a very consistent quarterback. And just what he can do on third, fourth down, just extending plays with his feet's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think you made a really valid point about, throwing quarterbacks into new systems. And in the world that we live in, where you're getting a new OC after every decent year, it's got to be very, very incredibly hard to, have any kind of similar production. And, it's John Mateer is at Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. This is unrelated, but they brought in the offensive coordinator from Washington State alongside him, so he didn't have to learn a new system. And I'm curious how that plays out, how early and often that will play into, the September games where there's really not that much to learn. He already knows the playbook. My guess is they're going to be running the exact same stuff, and that'll play into the whole Michigan game. But, I agree with you. I think that, Kansas State has a really talented quarterback. I love Avery Johnson. Their running back is a really talented guy. I think their biggest concern is their offensive line. They had 2 draft picks and 1 transfer went to, I believe, Alabama or Mizzou.
Yeah, they lost 3 guys.
Yeah, really tough to replace those guys in the offseason, especially when you have that type of caliber. But the defense will be really, really stout. The run game will be really stout, as it always is with Kansas State.
Yeah.
I liked Iowa State all summer long. I was planning on putting my mortgage payment on Iowa State. I have since gotten a little bit of cold feet on that. I'm just going to wager my truck on Iowa State. And a lot of that stems from the fact that Iowa State really struggles to stop their run. That 3-3-3 defense is incredibly funky. They have it's like a 6-eye, a nose tackle, and then 3 linebackers. It's funky, and they struggle to stop the run. And it's gonna play into a running quarterback's system. And I've been preaching all year that Iowa State, and I'm a little bit embarrassed now that I've done a little bit of reflection. I took a nice post-work nap today, and when I was dreaming, I was thinking about some of the things I said on Josh Pate's podcast about why I think that Iowa State will make the playoff. And the more I think about it, I think that I was a bit overzealous about them. They're not returning the talent that I thought they were. They're not returning the amount of starters I thought they were. Kind of last year was their peak, and I'm actually expecting a little bit of a downfall. With that being said, I think I still take them here. It's interesting the line moved from, I think it was -5 down to 3.5 in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I love to follow trends like that. That means some big money has been flowing, in part because it's the first game of the year. Yeah. But, that's always an interesting point.
Yeah, no, I agree what you're saying, but I do disagree on the pick. I think just Avery Johnson, and you talked about the backfield, like running back Dylan Edwards is like a workhorse, and they also got Antonio Martin in the portal. I think that 2-headed monster right there is going to do exactly what Kleiman wants, and I just really think Avery Johnson, like week 1, is going to be able to run the ball and throw, kind of just a little more dynamic of an offense than Iowa State. I think Iowa State is going to take them a couple weeks to figure it out offensively.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that I'm now looking at Iowa State's schedule, Johnny, and low key, they're going to be like within a field goal favorites or underdogs in like the first 6 weeks. Listen to this schedule.
Yep.
So we're obviously in Ireland for Kansas State. Then we host South Dakota, an FCS team that you would not want to play. Then we host Iowa, a team that's historically had our numbers. We have been their little brother for years. Then we're at Arkansas State. You can kind of win there. We host Arizona. Not a terribly hard game, but certainly not easy. Then we're at Cincinnati, at Colorado, host BYU, host Arizona State, at TCU, host Kansas, and then we're at Oklahoma State. That's not an easy schedule. People talk about how hard the SEC schedule is, and I don't disagree. I think there's going to be some really good teams muddled in to the Big 12 that are going to have problems with these schedules, and we're going to have a 2-loss Big 12 champion like we always do. And, not to jump into the playoffs, but that makes me so happy that the Power 4 teams are not automatically – I'm sorry, I lost my screen here. Where did you go?
Yeah.
There you are. It makes me feel a lot better that the Power 4 teams are not the automatic 4 bids because – and I've been saying this forever, not to get on an unrelated track. That pissed me off to high heavens that I don't know. I'm actually going back and forth here. I hated how they automatically got 1 through 4. I want that to be on there.
Yeah.
There's no reason that they should have gotten 1 through 4, but I also need to incentivize winning a conference champion.
Yeah, no, I think winning a conference championship has to mean something, but I totally agree with what you're saying about the first 4 playoff spots. Going back to the Big 12, though, and why this game is so important is, like, you just read me that schedule. I think that's what a lot of team schedules are going to look like. I know Iowa State does play Iowa, which not every team does. But, like, looking back last year in the standings, the top 4 teams in the Big 12, Arizona State, BYU, Iowa State, Colorado, all had 2 conference losses. That's a trend you don't usually see, like you don't see with a lot of the other more top-heavy conferences. So I think the Big 12 is going to cannibalize itself. It's going to be gross. It's going to be like, what's that game you play? Like, you beat this team, so that means you beat the other team. Whatever that is.
It's not the continuity principle. What is that? It's
something like that. But
2 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 2.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what we're going to see in the Big 12, where whoever wins a conference is going to have 1 or 2 in-season conference losses.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Big 12 cannibalizes themselves to the point where the conference champion is the 9, 10, 11, or even 12.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
And that's the crazy thing about saying if you win, you're in, which I do love. I do love that idea of like, hey, we figured out a way to win the conference championship. That's amazing. But like, you think of historically some of the teams that could have won conference championships, right? If Texas A&M beat Texas last year, they would have played Georgia in the SEC championship. Yeah. Is that crazy? They lost to Notre Dame. They lost to South Carolina, LSU. They were going to enter the SEC championship with 3 losses. And like, I think back on LSU in 2021, played Georgia, got the break speed off of them, but they were going to be the first 3-loss team in the 14 playoff if they won that. Like, I don't want to be in a world where you're saying, hey, just because you won the SEC, you're still going to be ranked 1, 2, or 3, even though you have 4 losses. But I do agree that like finding a way
to mean something. Yeah, it's got to mean something. I do like, that's like, I'm a big fan of March Madness. I like, you win your conference tournament, you're in. Like, it just kind of, it incentivizes your in-conference schedule, which I really like because those games certainly do matter. So it seems like we're opposite on Iowa State, Kansas State, which is
I'm going with a coin flip here. I'm leaning towards Iowa State. I really think that Matt Campbell's got this going. And when you're replacing 60% of your offensive line with a new offensive coordinator that K-State has, I can only believe that there's going to be hiccups there. I just want to run down for our listeners here the odds. They're kind of miraculous. And if you switch to any other conference, you are not going to see this type of middle play, I guess, where there's the teams are so close together, right? We have Arizona State, it's plus 550. So you bet 100, you win 550 plus your 100 back. K-State is tied with them, plus 550. Utah 6-1, Texas Tech 6-1, Baylor 7-1, TCU 8.5-1, K-State 11-1, Kansas 18-1, and then it slowly goes down from there. Ending with UCF at plus 5,500. Scott Frost back there. Doesn't mean anything to me, but I just thought that was interesting. But if you go,
but let's talk about the Big 12 for a second, though, because I guess let's just lead into the conference champions and we'll do our picks at the end. But you're right, it is so open. Like, I listed 4 teams I definitely can see winning the Big 12, and it's Kansas State, Arizona State, and I do really like Utah and Texas Tech. I agree with you.
I think that Texas Tech has some really, really good talent on that defense. And I think that they could be a force to be reckoned with. I think, if you and I were to actually bet money, obviously we don't. Texas Tech would be probably a good play with their value.
Yeah, no, I just really think Bain Morton's going to have a good season at quarterback. He's back. And I talked a lot about them last week, but I think what they brought in the portal is awesome. So I really like that team. But I also think like Baylor and Utah, like coaching matters. And Dave Aranda and then Kyle Whittingham's always one of the best coaches in the country, just so consistent. It's kind of been the whole Gong show with the Cam Rising.
I mean, if you take away the COVID year and then last year, he's a 10-win coach almost every
year. So I could see them making a run. I think they're a talented team. They've got one of the best offensive linemen in the country in Spencer Fano. I think they're going to be very good this year. But I do think my pick, if I had to put my mortgage on it that I do not have, is Kansas State. I like Kansas State.
In the game or in the Big 12?
Big 12.
See, I can't get myself, like I stated earlier, how the leader in September is not going to be in October, is not going to be in November. I don't think you could pay me, Johnny, to bet the Big 12 because I have no idea what's going to make of it. The more you and I have this conversation, the more that Texas Tech kind of screams as
I like Texas Tech. I still don't know if I trust them, but I
agree with you. But they have so much depth on the defensive line in the front seven that it's hard to deny that like teams are going to struggle against them. But I agree wholeheartedly. I think that one of the reasons that people always talk about how good the SEC is and the Big Ten is that teams are talented across the board, right? Like we have two teams in contention for the SEC almost every single year, Georgia and Bama. And it's been Georgia and Bama probably since 2011, 2012?
Yeah, it sounds
besides LSU that one year. And then besides that, the 7th ranked team in the SEC is a very, very good team. If you flip it on the inverse, we have no guarantee of who's going to win the Big 12, but 1 through 7 are all very competitive, and it's probably going to be a coin flip of who can win the Big 12. And I think that's almost more exciting.
Oh, it's so exciting. Going down the line this season in the Big 12, like we get into October, it's going to be a lot of fun. Every game's going to matter, and we got some really funny coaching personalities in the conference. I think it's going to be kind of just an absolute hurricane of teams crashing into each other.
Do you see that South Carolina, Alabama tweet?
No, what?
It was like their student section tweeted it, but it was like South Carolina's stadium. It was beautiful. And it had like rolling clouds coming in. It was like a summer storm. And it was like hurricane, storms are coming or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the Alabama fan page tweeted at them. And it was like, hazard level 7 and 5.
That's so good.
Which is so messed up because all jokes aside, South Carolina should have beat Bama, should have beat LSU last year. So we won't talk about them. I have some really strong feelings about them. I think they're going to be an incredible team. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of their players later in today. So a couple other games that we obviously have going on. We won't dive into those in great detail. Idaho State, UNLV. Obviously we have the quarterback from Michigan heading to UNLV.
Alex Orji.
He's the starter. He couldn't throw the ball if his life depended on it. Absolutely terrible at throwing it, but can run like an absolute racehorse. So
he's a freak.
He's crazy athletic, crazy strong, crazy heavy. That'll be awesome. See, Kansas, another team in the Big 12. Neither you nor I have even mentioned them. But if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy, be hard for me not to believe that they can't win 8 games, maybe even 9, and be in contention.
I also just love Lance Leipold. I think he's a very consistent coach. I know last year was tough, but with the injuries at quarterback, it's going to be tough for like the best coaches. So I think Kansas is going to be a good team if they can stay healthy this year.
Yeah. I wonder how that'll work logistically, and I would like to dive into that a little bit deeper. If I think that legit the top 7 teams in the Big 12 can all win 8 games, what's the likelihood of that? Because obviously that probably can't happen.
No, it can't happen, yeah.
But like I've been saying that for every single team. I think that they all realistically could win 8 to 10. Then we have Sam Houston at Western Kentucky and Stanford at Hawaii. Before we dive into any of those, Johnny, those are obviously kind of write-off games, the big favorites besides the Stanford and Hawaii. I do want to talk a little bit. We wanted to cover the playoff a little bit, right?
Yeah, I've got some. I've got the odds out for Heisman and the odds futures to win the national championship. So
why don't you go through the odds to win the national championship and highlight any that you find crazy good value versus some that you think are the opposite of value that you wouldn't touch due to those odds?
How many did I write down? 1, 2.
Also, for everyone listening, I got really sick today and I thought I was going to die. And I told Keith, one of our listeners, to put my life insurance policy on Penn State to win the Natty after they lose to Oregon September 27th.
Not going to happen.
I think that right now they're 2.5 to 1 or 3 to 1 to win the Natty. After they lose to Oregon, they're going to be like 7 to 1. You know, my life insurance policy, $2 million times 7 to 1, some really good money.
They will not. I agree that that's the best time to bet right after a loss like that, but they won't lose that game because I will be in attendance. I will be one of the 110,000 reasons they do not lose that game. Me and Jack Jones. So
I wouldn't be surprised if you were the undercover Panther.
Like the mascot?
The one dancing and doing all the backflips and the
so sick. No, I'm not that flexible. But okay, I've got it written out right now. Okay, so we had two teams leading the way on DraftKings for they were both plus 550 to win. It was Texas and Ohio State. I don't like that Ohio State pick just because I don't think the odds are good enough there to take them. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. I think I had them at 2.
Yeah. In my Julian Sayin was just listed as the starter for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think he really has to do much to be successful in this position. I think that at most he has to do is just kind of stand at the steering wheel and just be there. Some really good Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, they just have some true talent
Max
on that
Clare.
team. Yeah, losing a lot of offensive line talent. They're losing a lot of talent, but they have one of the best. They do have the best offensive player in college football and one of the best defensive players in college football. But I'm with you. A rookie quarterback winning a Natty, unheard of.
Same thing with Texas. Like I like Texas this year. I think that defense is so gross. Like just freak athletes all over the place. Yeah. Anthony Hill Jr., Michael Taffey, that cornerback that's the freshman, I'm blanking on his name. And then also the main guy, Colin Simons, right? Yeah.
Someone, I forget who it was, just came out and said Archie Manning is the best quarterback he's seen in college football since Trevor Lawrence, in that their games replicate each other immensely.
That just can't be true. You have to show me the tape on that one.
I kind of agree with it, Johnny, just a little bit.
I don't know if I've seen enough to say that about Arch. Like Trevor,
I think people are being a little bit aggressive with that. Like
people are bullish on him.
I'm not sure I know what that means, but I think you're being too stiff on him. You've seen less play out of Bryce Underwood, but everyone's calling him the second coming. You've seen only a few games of DJ Lagway, but yet he's in your playoff prediction. But yet we saw 4 or 5 games of Archie Manning, and you're not saying he's good enough to lead a team?
First of all, Florida's not in my playoff prediction. But
joke's on you.
Okay. But I don't know. Guys like DJ Lagway, Lenore Sellers, we've seen like a full season from them. And I know you pushed
DJ Lagway only played 7 games last year.
Okay, still. He played well down the stretch in the SEC. Yeah. But Arch, I just haven't seen it from him. Also, Quinn was bad last year. Quinn wasn't good last year. And if he wasn't good, and if Arch is the second coming, like, hey, if we're making the Trevor Lawrence comparison, Trevor Lawrence came in and started halfway through the season, on that Clemson season. And I know they were undefeated, it was the same situation, but like, if Quinn wasn't getting it done, why didn't they throw Arch in that?
I think that argument's a little bit silly. You have a 3-year starter. It's a morale thing. You, out of all people, you're a culture guy, would you say?
Yeah, love culture.
You think that benching your 3-year starter is good for team culture? Absolutely not. I don't think that Archie, in those situations, you need to be head over heels certain that Archie is better than Quinn, and I don't think he was last year. But then to say that he can't take the step and be better than Quinn Ewers now is silly, right? You can say that with every other quarterback, but you can't say it with him.
I don't know. I just don't think he has no time to grow up. He has no time to grow up in that schedule.
I don't know how much growing up he needs to do.
A lot of growing up. He was not a starting quarterback last year. He's going to be a starting quarterback this year.
I think you're being
He's going into the horseshoe.
That's a tough game. I've been to the horseshoe. It's a tough environment. I'm going to give him a lot of credit if he can come out of there with a win. But I think that people are being way too aggressive with their, I don't know what he can do. We saw him in a full game. He threw for like 380 yards and
I'm not saying he's going to suck. I'm not saying he's going to suck. I'm just saying for me to put my
it's also his 3rd year in college.
For him to win a national championship? Come on. I'm just going to bet him to win a national championship after I haven't seen anything from him. I'm not going to make that bet right now. I do love Texas. I think they're going to. We'll go into our
I think
conference.
it's awfully contradictory, but we'll
Why?
digress.
How did I who am I picking?
There's other teams that you are betting that have first-year starters in the
not
past.
to win the national championship.
You're telling me you would have never bet a first-year starter
to win the national. Well, I'd have to go back.
You didn't even know who Joe Burrow was before 2019.
Nah, I know he's a backup at Ohio State.
See, I think even that's a stretch. But what I'm saying is, I think we saw enough of what he can do in both the RPO and the pass game with a couple different games to say that, yes, he is able to take the next step with solid wide receivers and a really good offensive line. The argument that, like, yeah, he wasn't good enough last year to overthrow a 3-year starter is just too much for me to
But it was also a 3-year starter that was playing bad. Quinn wasn't good last year.
He had flashes of being really good.
Yeah, but that's flashes. Like, from a 3-year starter, flashes can't be enough. And you know that. You would agree with that.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I also struggle with the mindset of benching a 3-year starter for someone who you could ultimately ruin their career by putting them in too early.
You could ruin your coaching career by not putting a guy in and lose. I don't know. I'm not down on Arch. I'm just saying I'm not betting Arch to win the national championship.
Put every egg he had in Archie, and I don't know. This sounds stupid, but I believe that he wasn't ready. It was very, very apparent. It would have done nothing but hinder their season by starting him last year. I thought they played him enough and put him in situations that would make him uncomfortable. He showed what he needed to. I think that, his inexperience is nothing but a overhyped, thing that people are getting too hung up on. I think that we've seen more than enough to say that, yes, they should be the front runner for the Natty.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't agree that Ohio State should be behind them. Are you insulted? Yeah. What is Penn State's odds?
Ready? Do you want me to read the rest of the list?
Yeah.
Rest of the list. Yeah. Penn State 700 plus 700.
They're number 3?
Yeah, they're 3. Well, Ohio State and Texas were even with each other. Yeah. But yeah, they're 3. Yeah. Penn State 700. Georgia's 750. Clemson, Alabama, both 1,000. Notre Dame 1,200. Oregon 1,300. From that, I really like Penn State at 700. I think they're the most complete team in the country.
That seems incredibly low, doesn't it? Because Ohio State last year at this time, I think, was plus 265.
No, 100%.
And I remember Bama years entering the year at minus money.
I don't like Georgia at 750. I don't know. I don't trust Gunnar Stockton. Clemson at 1,000 has a lot of value because I think they're one of the most complete teams in the country. Them and Penn State are my 2 favorite picks. I'm staying 1,000 feet away from Alabama plus 1,000. And then Notre Dame and Oregon at 1,200, 1,300. I don't know. I don't love that. I don't love both those either.
I like Oregon a lot more than Notre Dame simply because of the quarterback experience. I believe Notre Dame came out and said they have CJ Carr as their starter.
That seemed late, though. I thought they were going to announce that like a month ago.
You know I did too. And then like a week ago it switched, which is never a good sign. And then they also came out and said at one point that both quarterbacks will see adequate amounts of time.
I don't like that.
What did you say last week? I really like that. It was like, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks or something like that.
Yeah. If you don't have it, and maybe this points to what you're saying about Arch and Quinn. Like, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Like, I forget which game it was last year. Might have been Bama against Texas where they took Quinn out, put Arch in, and then went back to Quinn. I don't like that. Like, I agree. If you're going to take out Quinn, put Arch in, and just die with that. Like, you're right. If you don't, you can't play 2 quarterbacks.
No.
I'm surprised I'm surprised they let Angeli leave. I like Steven.
I don't understand that. How can someone be your number 2 guy behind Riley Leonard, go in and perform outside of his skull?
It's awesome.
That would drive against Penn State, right? Not Georgia.
That could have won. Yeah, no, it's Penn State. That could have won the game for them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that was one of the deciding factors. Yeah. And then go around and say in spring ball, hey, you're not even the 3rd guy. Yeah,
that was crazy.
So I would hope to believe that they have that much confidence in these other 2 guys, that these other 2 guys have developed in the last 5 months. Absolutely amazing. It would be great to see. I'm excited for both of them, but the quarterback coming from UCLA, Dante Moore, at Oregon, obviously has a full season under his belt with Chip. I'm excited to see what he can do. Obviously he had some really good spurts with UCLA, but I'm expecting some really good things going into his team at Oregon.
He's very talented, and he has a ton of talent around him. So I think he'll be good. one number, the number I don't like the most in there is Alabama plus 1,000. I'm not really high in Bama. I think the defense, like I said last week, is going to be awesome, but I think they're very inexperienced on the other side of the ball, and I just don't really trust Kalen DeBoer there.
No, me neither. But I do disagree with you on Georgia a little bit. I think Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in college football, and I don't think I have to go into that for anyone to disagree. But, they had 3 major problems last year. They could not catch a football. That was like their number one time. They had multiple plays. I think they led the nation by 50% in drops. They could not run the ball, and they had no depth in their offensive line. Funny enough, they didn't actually go into the portal and get any offensive linemen, which goes to show that they knew about the problem and they trusted the people they had there that much. They did go and get some running backs. I think that who's the OC there? It's Todd.
It's not. No, it's not. I can look it up. No, he's a guy at he's the Baltimore Ravens. Georgia.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
This is why you come to this podcast, because we're doing on the fly. Jump to coaches. Defensive coordinator. Trip coach. Bobo. Mike Bobo. Todd Monken was a pretty good guess. I do like Mike Bobo.
Yeah, no, I do too, and I think that they're going to have the team ready. I think that a team that goes into – and Bama's the same way. It's funny that Bama and Georgia were kind of the same team last year. Really stunk on the offensive line, stunk on defense, and stunk in the pass game. But, especially in the run game too. But both teams are dedicated to running the ball, and they're willing to die on that hill. And I think a team that's willing to die on the hill of running the football is going to be a good team. I would put my money on Georgia to win the SEC way more than I would Bama. I know we're talking about national championship odds. I don't think either of those teams are the national championship caliber teams that we've seen in the past. But I do believe that both teams are good enough. Excuse me. I do think that Georgia is good enough to win the SEC. I do not believe that Bama is good enough to win the SEC.
Totally agree. You want to move on to Heisman?
Yeah, let's talk about the Heisman a little bit.
Sweet. Okay, I pulled these off ESPN today, which I'm pretty sure ESPN uses DraftKings. But, okay, so the article that I read, these are – do you want to name – do you want me to just go down the list again?
Yeah, go down the list. It's worth noting that the Heisman winner for the last – I think besides Travis Hunter, on average was like 50-1. Like the last 10 winners are super low key. No one even knew about them. I know Travis Hunter, I think, was 11-1 entering the season last year, and a lot of people made some good money. But even Ashton Gianti was I think 65-1, and even after his game against Oregon, where he ran for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, he was still 55-1.
He kept them in that game. Okay, starting Arch Manning plus 600. We just talked about him a lot. Cade Klubnik plus 900 and Garrett Nussmeier plus 900. I do like those 2 picks for 2 totally different reasons, and I can go into it. Cade Klubnik, I really like a plus 900 just because I think Clemson's going to be great. I think they're going to win the ACC. I think they'll be a top seed in the playoff. They're such a complete team, and Heisman voters love that. Heisman voters love if your team's good.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. What do you do to pick your Heisman? What is in your head, you're reading this list, what exactly are you looking for out of a Heisman? Because in my head, I'm thinking, does this guy dominate his conference? Does he dominate his team? Is he bar none the best player on his team? And does his team win? And I think that does his team win is the most important part.
Yeah, I think you either have to win, like you just said, and kind of carry that team, or if you're on or you do kind of what Jalen Daniels did, and you put up just video game numbers, and you did everything you could to win. And if your team loses, it's kind of like the Johnny Manziel, they didn't win every game, but he put them in a position to win every single game. So that's why I like Cade Klubnik. I like from the win. That was perfect how that just worked out, because Cade Klubnik I like because I think they're going to win a lot. Garrett Nussmeier, just because I think he's going to throw for a ton of yards in their system. They've got some good receivers coming back. LSU always has good receivers, but I think he's going to throw for 1 billion yards, and I think there's good value in that.
It's going to be interesting because all the top 5, if they are, because I think the Heisman's basically, they say on average is decided before November 1st. Yeah. Is that if all of them are 7-0, 6-1 entering November 1st, it's going to be really, really interesting to see who's the favorite. Because if Clemson's undefeated, Texas is undefeated, LSU has maybe 1 loss. It's interesting to think because there's a couple names on there that you haven't even mentioned, which are likely team leaders that are undefeated. Drew Aller, very well to be. undefeated
18-1.
going into early November.
Yeah, so now going down the list, I've got Jeremiah Smith at 12-1, which I don't like, just because I know he might be the best player in college football, but he doesn't start with the ball in his hands. And I think that's a kind of a dumb, reduced take. But it's like he can't get himself the ball. And I think that hurts his cases. He's going to have to, like, that Devontae Smith, that was a crazy run for him to win the Heisman. I just think it's really hard for a non-quarterback to win. And I think you're going to see that with Jeremiah Smith, like new quarterback, very inexperienced offensive line. And they've got a lot of talent on that team. That tight end, Max Clare's awesome. Had an awesome year at Purdue last year. I think that's going to make it hard for Jeremiah Smith. And you got Lenore Sellers, 16-1. I think they're going to lose too much. And then Drew Aller, 18-1. Like you just said, I really like that just because they're going to win a ton of games. And they could be undefeated.
I got in an argument recently at the office. I was talking about he's not going to have enough touches because they're going to lean on the run game so heavily. And I was thinking to myself, with an offensive line that's arguably number 1 and or 2 in college football, you know, yes, they're going to run the ball a lot, but you're telling me they're not going to air it out on those play action passes?
I think the fact that they have Nick Singleton and Katron Allen is going to open up the pass game a tremendous amount. And they got guys in the portal that can catch the ball, Devontae Ross, Trevor Pinion, Kyron Hudson. Like, I think that's really going to open up the pass game, especially like Andy Koltanicki loves play action, loves that PA game. So I think that's really going to help Drew Aller.
I don't see how they're not the type of team to drop 35 to 42 a game, especially in the first 5 or 6 weeks. And if they do so, it'd be very hard to believe that a 6-0, 7-0, especially beating Oregon, Drew Aller won't be a top 5 Heisman odds.
No, I think he's up there. I just think just the way they lost last season, everyone is so down on Drew Aller, but I think that's a good thing for Drew Aller Heisman bettors. Yeah. Like, put it in now, because I think if they get going, they beat Oregon, that 18-1 is going to become
3-1.
So fast. Some other. I'm not going to go in chronological order now. I'm just going to say some big names. You just tell me like it or hate it.
Yep.
Sam Levitt, 20-1.
I like it. I don't think that they're going to be able to lean on him the way they think they can. I think that Cam was too much of an influence on the game last year, and he just won't see the production. I don't think there's any value in that.
Okay. Carson Beck, 20-1.
That's a joke. Next.
Hate it. Dante Moore, 25-1. The Oregon, that's such
I think that's spot on. I think that's low-key kind of spot on. I think that, in similar fashions, we could see him. Oregon started the season absolutely terrible last year, and I think that that's the last thing that they're going to do this year. To have a really good Heisman campaign, you have to have a really good September, which I think that Oregon will do. So I see those odds dropping, but I don't see the path for him to win the Heisman.
John Mateer, 30-1.
I just can't get behind. I can't get behind Oklahoma winning enough games in the same way that I don't think Florida will win enough games to get DJ Lagway the Heisman. I think that
22.
I'm not a John Mateer fan. First of all, he's a gambler. I don't support that. I don't condone that. But to digress, what are DJ Lagway's odds?
22-1. I don't
22-1. I don't mind that. And, I want to talk about Florida for just a second here.
Yeah,
everyone talks about how hard their schedule is. And it's very well documented how hard their schedule is. But their over-under is still 7.5 wins, Johnny.
That's hard. That's going to be tough to get there. I think I don't know, Patch. That is –
So hold on here. So, we're going to talk about our playoff prediction. I hope you wrote yours down. I have all 12 teams in my phone right now. But they are home against LIU. Then they have South Florida, LSU, Miami, Texas, A&M, Mississippi State, Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. And I'm going to just play this out and tell me if this sounds crazy to you. A win against LIU, a win against South Florida, coin flip against LSU. We're going to come back to that one. We're not going to say it's a win or a loss. So right now we're 2-0. We're going to beat Miami.
Yeah.
I think we lose to Texas.
Yes.
Okay. So we have one loss against Texas. I think we can beat A&M. We definitely beat Mississippi State. I'm going to go with a loss against Georgia again. Really close game last year. But I don't see how we don't run the table against Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. And then if LSU is a coin flip, that's an 8-3 team.
You lose to LSU in LSU. I don't think they win that game. I really don't. I
They
think
won in
LSU's
LSU
better.
last year, I think.
No, it couldn't have been. It had to have been at home because they're at LSU this year.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
No, I don't think they beat LSU. I
But
also
I
think
think
those.
where I was going with that is I think an 8-3 team with that schedule will have DJ Lagway the Heisman without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I just don't. I think that's gonna be really hard. I also think that end of the stretch there, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State's harder than you think. I also think Kentucky might be scrappy just because Kentucky all is like the most trapped team in the SEC of all time.
Yeah,
Like they
no, I
beat
agree.
Ole Miss. Did they beat Ole Miss last year or something crazy? Like they're the most.
Yes, they did. They beat Ole
Yeah,
Miss bad.
yeah. Like I don't know.
Did
They
you
just
ever
win.
watch that? I think it's Taylor Lewan in something else. Will
The
Compton,
Bussin'
they
yeah,
do
Bussin'
a
with the boy.
podcast.
Yeah, Bussin' with the boys.
You see Diego Pavier was on it the other day?
No, is he being crazy? He seems like an absolute psycho.
It's a little bit of a weird personality. He's like reserved but also pompous. But I thought it was interesting. He basically was
Wrestler.
like, yeah, we have all the tools. He's a wrestler?
Yeah.
He's like, we have all the tools to be a natty. We have all the tools. And I was like,
no chance. They might have the best tight end in the country other than the guy at Ohio State, Max Clare. Eli Stowers, he's awesome. I think he's great. But no, there's no way Vanderbilt's going to win the natty.
No,
but I love that out of my quarterback. I want that out of my QB.
Yeah, no, I want a little bit of swagger. But I want to go and read my playoff teams to you in order as we finish up the podcast and we go and enter our week's picks. Do you have yours in order?
No, I do not have mine in order. Okay. I was more focused on conference champions.
But that's on me. I would just like to share this because I thought about it.
Yeah, go for it. And I'll write down and I'll see.
I'm actually rereading my list and I don't know how much I like it.
So awesome.
First 8, I'm pretty confident in.
Okay.
Number 1, Penn State. 2, Texas. 3, Ohio State. 4, Clemson. 5, Notre Dame. 6, Georgia. 7, Michigan. 8, Oregon. 9, Iowa State. Don't like Iowa State, as we've already discussed. No. I've cooled off on them in the last 6 hours. 10, Florida. 11, South Carolina. I think it's a redemption year for both those teams. And 12, UNLV. I've kind of cooled off on a few of those teams. You know what team I'm actually, starting to research a little bit because I think that they could win that Group 5 is Navy. And even
Navy looks good. I think Boise State's also going to be back.
I think Boise State will sure. I think that's a really easy pick. But also the quarterback for Navy last year had like 33 touchdowns. Awesome. He wasn't highly televised, but if you watch him, he's a very talented guy. I think he's 33-1 to win the Heisman. I think he could be a dark horse. If they have another lights out year, and let's say hypothetically all the other quarterbacks kind of underperform, which isn't that crazy of a idea.
I'm surprised you didn't say USC. I thought you were so high in USC. Wait,
I am so high on USC. I think they have a really, really tough October where I think they could go 1-3.
You say Illinois?
I did not know.
I think Illinois is a lock.
It's tough. I thought the same thing about Mizzou last year, and then they lost one too many games. And that's all it takes. It's really, really tough. I think if I had to bet, I think Michigan over Illinois. Just because I think they win their head-to-head matchup.
Fair. We'll see. I think that's going to be a playoff game. Yeah. Illinois, Michigan, whoever wins, that's in.
Yeah,
which will be awesome because the Big Ten. No, I like that. I like that 12. I might put. Like we've argued the Big 12 so much. I think you could put Kansas State in there or Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think that one you and I could throw any variation at it. And speaking of the variations, I think that would do us some serious ROI if we did that. Because in reality, any of those teams can make it. And we just talked about what their odds are to win the Big 12, excuse me. So you're talking 7-1 in a parlay at some extreme value. Yeah. And if we know Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson are in, and you pick one of those 7-1s, you do a couple different parlays, some good money probably. I bet you'd get well over 25-1.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I think there are definitely the first 8 are kind of locked.
You don't think that South Carolina has the manpower?
No. I think they're going to be great this year. I don't know. Let me pull up their schedule. I think their schedule.
One of the best defensive players in recent memory. Lenore Sellers was pretty elite. They realistically lost 2 games by 1 play, and one of them was one of the most rigged games in recent memory.
So awesome. Yeah. Wait. Let me find. Do you know what I was also thinking when we were going like going totally back. I would kind of like to see what Steve Angeli's Heisman odds are. I think he's going to throw.
I mean, he's going to be. If they didn't have such a tough schedule, I'd be much more inclined.
I think he's going to throw 10,000 yards. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. That's a joke.
Notre Dame, and if I was Notre Dame, I would be incredibly nervous for that game.
Well, just because look what Kyle McCord did in that offense last year. Okay,
he had 3,600 yards, didn't he?
Yeah. Virginia Tech win, South Carolina State win, Vanderbilt lost because they're going to win the national championship.
Fair.
Mizzou, Kentucky, all winnable games right there.
Yeah, 5-0 entering October, coming off a bye week, going to LSU is
okay. No, but then you got at LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Coastal Carolina, and then Clemson. That kills South Carolina having to play Clemson.
The Clemson game kills them, but like Johnny, all jokes aside, dude, like I see 2 realistic guaranteed losses, and even those, I'm like, oh, I might bet South Carolina come that time.
What's that? Bama LSU?
Yeah. I would probably lean more towards Texas A&M than Bama, but you know, I truly think that like they go 5-0. I think that LSU is a coin flip of a game, and I would almost be inclined to bet South Carolina. My guess is if I had to put a line on that, LSU would be a 5-point favorite right now. I would take South Carolina on that. I think that Oklahoma is going to be a little bit of a trap game, but nothing that we can't handle. Ole Miss, not that worried about A&M, a little bit worried about being at A&M. But yeah, finishing off the year to Clemson, another team that goes 8-3 is in the playoffs.
I don't know. The way I look at it is this. I think they lose to LSU and Alabama. And then if we put those aside as losses, then we're talking Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Clemson. I think they don't go undefeated in that stretch, which I think is fair to say. They drop one of those games. I don't know. I just don't know if they get in with 3 losses. They did last year. I don't know if they will.
This is the year of a 3-loss team getting in. I'm almost sure of it. The schedules the conferences have gotten it too big to have just 2 losses out of some really, really good teams.
But then I can see them losing to Clemson and then to another one of those teams. Going into Kyle Field, Texas A&M is going to be hard. Going to Ole Miss,
I think going to a team, I think going to a team knowing it is a playoff game is a whole different mindset. You know, the LSU game is different than the going to Kyle Field, and that I think that like the mindset of South Carolina going to A&M is going to be different than going to LSU.
I also think you're looking at that at LSU game, October 11th, way too much. I think that stretch of Vanderbilt at Mizzou, Kentucky is also a tough stretch. Those are 3 teams.
Every game in the
SEC
SEC is a tough
saying. I just don't know if I trust them.
But if we're saying this is a top 12 team in the nation, you should be able to beat those teams.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm just saying their schedule is so
what are we going to just allow teams to lose 5 games and still say they're really good teams? No. I think that Ole Miss is going to underperform. Kentucky's not going to be that good. I don't think LSU is that good.
Vanderbilt's winning the national championship.
I didn't say Vandy. I did not say Vandy.
Thiago Pavia said it.
We've declared that. We know that. But I think that we have gone as a society, not just this podcast, but as a society, we have overhyped these teams because they're in the SEC, and saying teams like, oh, they have a stretch of blah, blah, blah is so incredibly hard, but it really shouldn't be if you're a top 12 team in the nation.
So you're saying you take care of business. You have 2 losses. You go that November 29th game against Clemson. Is that win and you're in, or lose and you're still in?
I think it's both.
Wow. Okay.
That one is a win. Winning, you're 100% in. Loss, it depends on what the rest of the SEC looks like.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, you know, we talk more about these stretches of games for teams in the SEC now than we ever have. But like, that's not new.
No.
Kentucky, Vandy, Ole Miss, like that's not new for Florida. So why is it all of a sudden such a bigger problem? It's because they're fringe teams, and I get that.
I also think it's because they matter. Like before, if you had those 2 losses to Bama and LSU, it didn't matter. Like it didn't matter. You could lose the rest of those games. You weren't getting in no matter what. I think now that we have a set amount and the field's a little bigger, these games do mean more because it could mean the difference of getting in or not getting in. Where before, hey, we lost to LSU October 11th, end the season right there. Guys are going to start sitting out for the NFL draft. Where now, if you lose that game, you're still alive. You lose to Bama October 25th, you're still alive. Now that stretch of Ole Miss, A&M, Coastal, Clemson matters. Every one of those games becomes a playoff game, where before none of those games mattered.
They're for bowl contention.
For bowl contention, but they didn't matter the same way they do now. And I think that's why we've got so much talk about like stretches of games.
It's funny that we've now gone to the full circle of like, hey, you can lose more games, but games actually mean more now than they did when you could lose less games.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
I was talking a little bit to some of my friends about the era of, is it Bama or is it Clemson? And he was saying how he doesn't wish to ever return to that. And I was like, really? Because I really enjoyed that era of college football where you knew it was either Bama or Clemson. And I'm not saying I want to return to it, but I'm not going to say that I'm going to take any of that for granted. I miss that era of there's two teams in two separate conferences who freaking hate each other, and they're going to go at it and they're going to beat each other up like they're fighting for their lives. And
yeah, I do get what they're saying though. I do love more teams being in the mix. It's fun. Like you don't know, like the fact that we just talked Vanderbilt, Mizzou, UK stretch. We wouldn't talk about that any other season. Like that's awesome that we're talking about that. Those games matter.
If Florida gets in the playoff, I'm going to buy a Florida sweatshirt and wear it in the podcast.
Do it. I think they're in a similar boat as South Carolina.
So let's get to our picks, Johnny. We have Iowa versus Kansas State. Obviously, 5 teams. We're not going to do a Cheesecake Factory pick of the week. I think that there's just
it'd be too hard.
Yeah, not enough.
5 games. You and me are picking 2 of them. Okay,
we're going to pick all 5. So we got Iowa versus Kansas State. I obviously know you have
Kansas State.
-3.
I think they win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I am obviously taking Iowa State.
That's fine.
Plus 3 there. So we have Idaho State at UNLV -24.5 as of right now. Obviously, these are as it's being filmed. Could change a little bit, but I'm personally going to take UNLV. I think that this is going to be a dynamic offense. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. First game of the year, they're going to be slinging the ball like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think Dan Mullen's going to want to win by a lot in the first game of his era, so I'm also going UNLV. Shocker.
Fresno State at Kansas State. At Kansas. Kansas is a 12.5 point favorite. I think that this line should probably be closer to 13.5 to 14.5. I actually love the 12.5. I'm taking Kansas at 12.5.
Yeah, same. I agree.
We have Sam Houston at Western Kentucky. I'm leaning at Western Kentucky -10. That's a lot of points, but getting a late touchdown is not that hard. I'm going to go Western Kentucky, WKU.
This is where we split for the first time this year. I'm going Sam Houston to cover. They have a good pass defense. Western Kentucky has a new offense, and they lost their top 3 receivers. I think Sam Houston will lose, but I think it'll be closer, more like a 7-point game.
Wow. All right, Johnny. I would love to see an upset. I'm glad we aren't doing the Cheesecake Factory pick because that was terrible.
Yeah, but I'm doing a cover. But yeah, I would have picked them. I guess with 5 games, they would have been my cheesecake. But I think they cover.
I'm going Stanford at Hawaii. Obviously, that's a tough game to fly to. I think that Stanford played absolutely terrible last year. I think only won 3 games, maybe 4. But I think they cover that field goal. I don't think the away does that much of a disadvantage for them.
So you think Stanford win? No, it's Hawaii's.
I think they cover, but in doing so, I think they also win.
Stanford.
Yeah,
I'm going Stanford. Stanford was going back to 3 wins. That was probably the most bizarre 3 wins you'll ever see in a season because they were 3-9, but the 2 of the teams they beat were Syracuse and Louisville, which are 2 good teams. Like Very 2 competing for the ACC last year teams, which is like.
Well, you remember when they beat Colorado coming back from a 29-point deficit?
Yeah, that was so sick. That guy mossed I forget that receiver's name was because he mossed Travis Hunter 3 times that game.
I was thinking a lot about that. And last thing before I let you go is you remember the 2023 Colorado game?
Is that when they took out Travis Hunter? That's safety. That's safety
39-37. And it's funny because I see the tweet roll around every couple months. It's like everyone remembers watching this game at 2:30 a.m. And I remember I was legit glued to my screen because I could not look away because it was that crazy.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And I don't know. That was a cheap hit. but that's football. Like you
Well,
think
I mean,
back
dude,
that
think about the Florida hit back in the
I
national
was
championship
I
against
was
Oklahoma.
literally bringing that up. Like
When, when
that interview popped from that ESPN documentary in the swamp. That pops up my Instagram feed like once a month of that guy going, I'm trying to take that guy out. And everyone's like, yeah, let's go. And then
yeah.
the Colorado State guy does everyone like hates him.
Yeah, no,
But
he got hate mail. Like he had to
death
meet with
threats.
Travis Hunter and apologize in person. And I used to remember even going down to middle school, like if someone crossed the field, your job was to take their head off.
Kill them.
Like hopefully you put them in a stretcher. And now like we've gotten to the point where you have to apologize for hitting someone. I don't know. It's crazy. But Johnny, good luck on your Kansas State Wildcats. I can't believe I'm saying this. I have my closet next to me. I have 2 polos and a long sleeve of Kansas State, and I'm picking against them. I won't be dissatisfied if either team wins. I think I will just get a better, more clear picture of what the Big 12 is after just one singular game. So I can't wait. I actually cannot wait until Saturday.
Very excited too, Patch.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Good luck to you.
You too.
For our viewers out there, expect a lot of updates over the next 7 days. We will be getting social medias. We will be changing our name. We'll have a new look. A lot of great things to come to this show.
Live tweet some games.
Yep, we're gonna live tweets. We're gonna rage bait you guys all. So tune in for that. And Johnny, have a great week.
You too.